Okay, let's continue. I hope you all enjoyed your lunch. This morning we had an introduction to the Jean Monnet Center of Excellence on European Values, Erasmus Plus project that just started. And this afternoon we will have an overview of EVALUE, European Values in Education, also an Erasmus Plus project that is already in its final stage in the third year of the project. Inge Siebe will tell you more about that. But it's a pleasure to announce to you first Jantine Schuit, the Vice Rector Magnificus of our university. And she will introduce to you the values of the university and the educational plan we have. So, Jantine, please.
Thank you. Oh, nice picture, thank you. It's already for a few years ago, so, okay, well, I'm not sure if this works. Yeah, I think so. So I'll put this one here. So, yeah, on behalf of the full executive board, so also Wim van der Donk, but you already met him yesterday, and Pauline Snyder, I would really like to welcome you to our beautiful university. I saw that some of you already walked around, and yeah, we're very proud of our beautiful campus, very green, and also very inviting for people to come here, and also for our students to meet. So yeah, we are very pleased with that, and also today, of course, it's nice weather. Yeah, we're talking about during this conference about values of the past, of the present, and of the future. And last week I visited Berlin, and I bicycled with my bicycle. Of course, as a Dutch person, everywhere we go, we bicycle. I bicycled along the route where the Berlin Wall was, used to be. And again, then I also thought about, well, the values we treasure in Europe, they're not obvious. They have not been always obvious, but this was really made very clear that the values that were really, yeah, harassed, respect for human dignity, democracy, freedom, and also, of course, today in Ukraine, we see the same thing going on about the values that we treasure, that they are not really, that we cannot really have them and live by them. But we don't only need a war. I mean, if we look at COVID, the last few years, we also saw that this kind of crisis, a pandemic, can also really change our society, the way we think, the way we want to live. We look at society as a whole, we look at the healthcare sector, but also the labor market, but also how we relate to each other and our interpersonal relationships. They're really also harassed by this kind of yeah, unsudden crises. So values are what define us, and values are also the things that we want to be. And I think it's important for a person, it's important for society, but it's also very important for a university. And also so values are important for our university, and I want to tell you something about how we want to use them and how we have used them, and particularly also in relation to the initiation, but also the development of our strategic plan. So it was really a deliberate choice from the leadership, from our university, to start from values. So not thinking about only research, education, or impact, and what do we want to do, but really what do we want to be, and also what do we want to make, what kind of difference do we want to make as a university? What kind of impact do we have on our students or our personnel and on society as a whole? So we really started from there, and together with the leadership, so I would speak about the executive board and the deans, we thought about our dream. So how would the university look like in 5 years or later? Because as you can see, we're now existing 95 years, but in 5 years we have our first centennial, and we want to be prepared for the next centennial. And we started to dream together, and we came up with actually 4 values. And these are the ones who are now really the basis of the plans and ambitions of our university. Not only for education, and I will say something about that more, but also for research, but also how we are going to do our HR. What kind of personnel do we want to attract? What do we expect from our present personnel? But also, how can we use these values to discuss among each other what kind of community we want to be. So we started it with this, and we had a lot of discussions with all kinds of people in the university about, so for instance, PhDs, but also people working from HR, people, newcomers from who just joined our community, assistant professors, supporting staff, and we had this very nice topic about, so what do you think about these values? What does it mean for you? How can they help you? Do we need other values? Maybe. And we, as you can see, we have 4 C's, and it was really actually an accident that we have 4 C's, but then actually we also said, hey, in 5 years we're 100 years, so the C is actually a very nice extra that we have this C. So people started to think about, for instance, another more C-like things like caring, connected we already have, but for instance, now we're thinking about, well, anyway, new kind of values that also included the C. And of course we said we don't need only C's, we can also have other kind. But we started doing that, and after having all these talks with all kinds of groups, we said actually with these 4, we have already what we really want to achieve. Because we really want, also on the basis of our tradition, of our background, we really want to be curious as an academic community. We want to be curious about new knowledge, but also curious about other knowledges, other disciplines. And Tim already referred to it in the Jean Monnet Center. We really want to stimulate interdisciplinary research. We really want to make sure that if people work together from different disciplines, you really also enhance the quality of your own discipline. But by working together, we can also more challenge or also more work together on complex societal issues, because we really need to use all these kind of disciplines together. So that curiousness was really something that we really from the beginning said, this is something that we need to have. But caring is also something really specific for our university. We come from a background that the university started from young, particularly men in that time, who were sons of usually farmers with a low socioeconomic background, and we wanted in Brabant, in this community, in this area, to give them the opportunity to have an academic education. So, and also since then, we always have this inequity or more the fact that we want to empower people or to really also to do something for people in lower socioeconomic positions. This is something we really like. And caring means caring for each other, caring for those who have less opportunities, but also caring for our environment. Connectedness. We really believe that to be connected is very important. Actually, in our university, we have a connected leadership program. It's really about how to connect people, how to be in connection. And for me, it's actually obvious that we have to be connected. But we want now more to stimulate also connection with the local ecosystem, work more together with companies or institutions around us, and also do something for them. And not only do research more in a sense to do research, and of course fundamental research and creating new theories is very important, but also have an impact in society, particularly our ecosystem around in this area. And finally, courageous. And that is still the one that we still sometimes struggle with, because to be courageous is also taking sometimes steps that are, difficult or cost money, and you're not sure if you take bold steps, you can sometimes maybe lose some money, or you have things that you can fail. But we said to each other, well, if we really want to make changes in this world, maybe sometimes we have to color outside of the lines. Maybe we should get rid of some of our academic procedures, not academic, more administrative procedures that we have to do, and try to lower them, make it more easy. And of course, we're not there, and I know also the people who are in the room from the university. We try to make the rules less obligatory, make it better for persons to do their job, and not with all the administrative staff. But of course, that's also also for our university a challenge. But that is what we want to be. We want to be courageous, and we want to really also take big steps when it comes, for instance, to climate change and sustainability. But I also would like to say something about our educational program, because I already said we come from a certain background, and the educational profile that we have in our university, we call it also Tilburg Educational Profile, is really based on 3 things. And it has a connection with this, and that is actually that we say, as a university, we do not want to give only knowledge or provide knowledge to our students or skills, but we also want to help them to become the person they want to be. So we call it character. And it comes a bit from the Bildung principle. So when it comes to character, and I think that if it comes to knowledge, I think most of you know what we mean with that. Skills also, you have practical skills, social skills, creative skills, innovative skills. But when it comes to character building, we try in all our programs and in the courses to have some of the aspects built in where we really try or stimulate the students to reflect on the things that they study. So we really want to stimulate intellectual independence, critical mindset, social responsibility, scientific responsibility, and also entrepreneurship. And when it comes to entrepreneurship, I don't only mean creating businesses, but also you can also be entrepreneurial in more social sense. So these things, and then we really, sometimes we have, for instance, a kind of an assessment, you know, from the educational assessment from other people who are assessing our programs, and they really say this character building, this character aspect is something that we really find in your courses. So this is something that we really, I think, different from other universities in the Netherlands, but we're also very proud of, because we really think that this building character or helping people to become the person they want to be is a very important part of our university. So these values, they're coming back in different kind of aspects. And so maybe to end up is because now, of course, you have values and we've made a strategic plan, and that's only words. And now the next step is really also, okay, how can we really use this to change behavior, to change culture, and to also to get discussions with people, get really a dialogue. What does this mean for you, and how does it help you in your work? Or how can we use this to make our workplace a better place to work? And we're now in the process of also having this kind of interviews, but this is something that we're really going to use also for when we hire new staff, or when we make our decisions. We really always try to be connected to these values. So we will see in a few months, years, how that will work out, but this is really the basis for the way we want to work, and also the way we want to be in the next 5 years and beyond. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and a little present.
Oh.
It's a little important.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for this introduction, which I think will very well connect to the next subject. So, Inge, please.
Yes, I would like to tell you about the project EVALUE, European Values in Education, that I'm the coordinator of. But of course, I'm not doing this alone. We are working together with a lot of people. And you see here the logos of all the universities that we are working together with. So EuroGeo, which is actually an association for geography. There we work with Carl, Veselen, and Greg. Ege University, Izmir, Turkey, with Semra, Duygu, and Sonja. Fontes, University of Applied Sciences, with Uwe, Hans, and Hai. KU Leuven in Belgium, with Ellen, Doreen, and Karen. University Matea Belle and Banska Skrabiska, Tibor, Ivan, sitting there, and Bohunka. And most of these universities actually contribute in two ways. They have teacher training programs and social scientists. And together, I think we make a good combination because we create materials for secondary schools. I will tell you in a minute what all these insights bring us. To start, why did we start the project? First, from the field, from the educational field, we discovered, and also research shows this, that there is a need for citizenship education. But teachers struggle with this, schools struggle with it. So there's a lot of curriculum changes going on, that schools should pay attention to values like democracy, teaching pupils how to become good citizens in society. But how to do this in practice, that's a big challenge. And what this project is doing is that together with schools in the 4 countries that we are working with, so in Belgium, the Netherlands, Turkey and Slovakia, we create interactive tools and teaching materials that actually match the curriculum needs. That's very important because you can create materials, but if you are not linked to the curriculum, there's no use for teachers to be using it, right? So this is very important that we have this co-creation with the schools. We go to the schools, we ask them what they need. Of course, the teacher training programs themselves also have a lot of knowledge about this. And together with the schools, we create the tools and the materials. We trial them at schools, make feedback loops in it. So in the end, we have good products. And actually, I'm very proud that we've succeeded so far already, because it has been a difficult period for our project as well. With the corona times, it was not easy for schools and teachers anyway to teach, but to be involved in a project like this and to do something extra to help us with developing the materials, I'm really glad that it worked out the way it did. And we are still in this phase of even more trialing the materials. To focus a little bit more, we decided that we would have 5 themes which are very important, both in education but also in society. Like Tim presented the Jean Monnet Center with the 6 priorities of Ursula von der Leyen. You could connect them to these as well. The new Green Deal, environment, democracy is in there. Migration is also a big issue. So these are themes which are linked to curricula and to subjects in schools, but also to society. So we thought these 5 themes, which are very key and contemporary, are the focus of our project. We developed a lot of different things, and I will explain a little bit what they are and why we created them in a moment. You can find everything on our website, and as Ruud was saying, we are in the sort of final year of the project, so a lot has been developed already and is ready to use. So you can go to atlasofeuropeanvalues.eu and find it all. The main message that I want to give you today is that all these different tools that we made and the teaching materials are based on scientific insights. And this is in 3 ways. We use scientific data, among which the European Value Study, of course. We use insights from social sciences to tell a bit about values in Europe. And we use pedagogical insights to make the teaching materials in such a way that they are also effective. And I will, in my presentation, go through all these 3 different things. So first, the data, because this is actually the backbone of our project. We started as European Value Study, of course. We were in contact with the Fontes, University of Applied Sciences, and we both thought, also really a while back ago, this is a rich source of data. There's so much in there, and it can be used in a more broader sense, not only for scientific research, but also for something else like education. And I think that's important that we use these high quality survey data for other audiences as well. So not only scientists can profit from it, but others as well. Next to the European Value Study, we also use data of the European Social Survey and the World Value Survey in our project because they add something. Well, shortly about the European Value Study, a lot of you are in the project, so I don't have to explain a lot, but there are also some teachers who are joining us today, so I want to briefly mention what it is. The European Value Study, you can find all the information on the website of the European Value Study, but it is a really large-scale project on basic human values. And what do we mean with values? It simply is, what do people find important in life, to say it shortly? What drives you? And the European Value Study asks a lot of questions which deal with opinions, attitudes, beliefs, to capture these values in many domains: family, religion, work, democracy, inequality, society, environment. So we have a lot of data with the attitudes, opinions, and beliefs of people. We do this data collection in such a way that it is representative for the populations in the countries that we survey. We have a lot of European countries that we have. And we use very high standard methodologies to collect the data. It's all survey data, so we ask people their opinion, and we do this on paper. Interviewers are going to the homes of people and ask them to answer the questions. And recently, also with the latest wave, we have the online surveys as well. But all are based on these high quality methodologies with the random sampling and the high standards that we have. And what is also nice and very important is that the European Value Study has been around for a long time, as we've heard yesterday also when we said goodbye to Luke. It's from the 1980s onwards we are collecting these data. So you can have a snapshot at certain time points, but you also can see trends in time. And that's also very valuable because you can think about how do people change in their values, or how do societies change in their values. Well, this is an overview of all the data that we have, you could say. So the countries in red is where we collect data, and you can see that Europe is not the European Union alone, it's the whole of Europe that we cover. And it has been more and more countries with each wave, sort of. As I said, the methodological standards are very high, and that has to do with the sampling procedures. Yeah? Like I said, you need random samples in order to get to representative surveys for the whole population. Of course, you can also check whether it is actually representative. You can apply weights to that. The questionnaire is designed very carefully. We have a theory group and also a methodology group who keep up the standards of the survey. You can imagine that if you're fielding a survey in so many countries, translation is key, so that you have the correct wording of the questions in all the languages. And afterwards, when you have collected the data, you also need to make sure the coding is correct and comparable across countries. Because, for example, if we ask about educational levels, educational systems in all the countries are different. And if you say this is lower education, this is higher education, you have to have a sort of a matching procedure to have a more comparable overview. That was the European Value Study. In the project, we also used the World Value Survey because we think it's interesting for students also to learn about maybe Europe is different from the world. So we also have the World Value Study survey in it. And that has a great overlap with the European Value Study. So actually you could say EVS is for Europe, WVS is for the rest of the world. And there's also trend data available there. So a long time period. Finally, we also include some questions from the ESS, the European Social Survey, and we chose this because in the ESS, because they have modules, so they have a section with questions which are repeated every 2 years, but there are also modules in there, and for example, they have modules on democracy or on environment, on migration, and that adds additional information to the European Values Survey data that we already have in there. And also, I must say, we use this data because Belgium was not part of the EVS, and Belgium is one of our partners, so that's also why we include this. So 3 very high, methodologically high quality data sets, which are the backbone of the project. Then the second scientific insight, that was based on the social science literature. That brings us theories to explain why people have the same values or have different values over time, between countries, within countries. And within countries we can look at different groups. So we can compare different groups, for example, the young versus the old. And thinking about this, we are also always think about, okay, if young and old differ in their values, how does this come about? You can think about life cycle effects. So when you age, you think differently. So young people think differently than older people because maybe when you're young, you have less responsibilities, you don't have a family or a house to take care of, so maybe you can be more rebellious. And when you're older, maybe you can become a bit more traditional and conservative. Well, research shows that this is indeed a bit the case, but most of the change when it comes to comparing old and young has to do with birth cohorts. That means that people are born in a specific time period, specific context, and this context influences them during their formative years. And that, let's say, installs certain values in people, and they keep these values for the rest of their lives. And this is how you see also changes over time. So we have young people born in a different time point in life, in history, than older people, and that's why they have different values. And of course, in time, the older generations die, and the younger generations succeed them. And this is how value change in a society comes about. That's roughly the theory behind it. And in the materials that we develop, we use insights like this to explain why there are trends, for example. To show you simply one piece of work, that is recent work by Kita and Tim and Ruud and me, and which also shows why it's so important that young people maybe can get these teaching materials in their lessons, is research that is about democratic values. So you can measure whether people have a preference for democracy or more like an authoritarian view. And here we have a scale which shows how much democratic values are appreciated. So the higher the score here, the more democratic values are appreciated. And what you also see is, there's a lot in the figure. You can see birth cohorts, so people born in different time periods. Here are the older generations and the younger generations. And then we have here in this graph 3 of the EVS waves. The green line is the first wave we look at here, 1999. Then you see the red line, lower, that's 2008. And then the blue line, 2017, the latest wave, again a bit higher. So if you look at the lines, you could see that there are some changes over time, sort of a period effect, one could say. So there is something happening because all the generations are at different levels. So in 1999 they're a bit higher, and then lower, and then again higher. So it is a period effect. But you can also see that in each wave, it doesn't matter, there's a difference between the older generations, the middle generation, and the younger generations. And actually it's the middle generation, so the baby boomers maybe, people born in the 50s and 60s, which show the highest appreciation for democratic values, while the younger generations, the younger cohorts, are actually, yeah, we think lower, a bit lower. And this is maybe not what initially some people thought, because I put up cultural backlash. The theory behind this cultural backlash is actually that the older generations are a bit more traditional, conservative, less democratic, because they feel threatened in their values, because they grew up in a period where there was more traditionalism, then you have a whole modernization coming on, more progressive values, open, tolerant, a cosmopolitan, and that makes them feel to have defend their own values. So the theory is that the older cohorts are more traditional and less democratic. And you can see that is partly true, but we also see that the younger cohorts show this behavior, show these values, so they're less democratic. And that could be maybe because they are more insecure. They grow up in a period with a lot of insecurities, economic insecurities. Think about the flexible labor market or housing market. It's very difficult for them. Maybe also cultural insecurities, thinking about identities. Who am I? Let's say traditional authorities which can sort of form your identity are not there anymore, like the church. That could be a reason also. There are many things that you can think about when it comes to young people and being insecure. So this is something that we want to explore further. But I wanted to show this to you because it also shows the importance of this civic education. That we go into the schools and have teaching materials which are interactive, engaging, and maybe then, because some social scientists, but also politicians are worried about this, because if you have a very low level of democratic values, that can be a danger to democracy. So that's why I wanted to show you this figure. Then thirdly, in designing all these teaching materials, we use pedagogical insights, and that is, one could say we have two aims with all the materials and tools that we develop. First, value clarification, which means that we want pupils to really understand what are values, are there differences, similarities between people, between groups of people, between countries, over time, and how do these differences or similarities come about. So to think about what values are and how to explain them, that's one part. And the other part is values communication, and that is more like, what is my position as a pupil? Where do I stand? And how does this relate to the position of others? So to be able to think about arguments, who am I, what do I think, and how does this relate to other people? Well, we use different techniques for that, different strategies, and I think what is important that we also try to aim at powerful knowledge and higher order thinking. And Uwe, you have a presentation later on in the session that can explain this more, because that's also your work. But it means that we want to give pupils the skills to deal with complex reality outside. And it means that, for example, these are all these words like critical thinking, analyzing, evaluating, creating. These are elements that we bring into the teaching materials. What is also very important, especially when it comes to value communication, is that to create an open classroom climate. Because in order to discuss and debate and think about your position and that of others, you need to be able to speak up openly. So there's also a lot of research, of course, on this, on how to create an open classroom climate, and also what it means if you can create an open classroom climate. And coming back to these democracy values, research shows that if you can do this, it creates in students an appreciation for conflict, and that means that you are at ease with different opinions. That's very important. In a democracy, there are different opinions, and you should not shy away from that, but you should go into a conversation with someone with another opinion, and discuss things. So that's one part, and the other part is that it's actually also related to democratic behavior. So if you can create an open classroom climate, for example, you can also, research shows that students are more willing to go to the voting booth and vote. So yeah, these are important things. And to give one example, this is one of the teaching, implemented in a teaching assignment made by KU Leuven, is the structured academic controversy model. It's one strategy, a teaching strategy that you can use to create this open classroom climate and to have these values clarification and communication in it as well. So what you do is you divide the classroom into heterogeneous groups of 4 students, and then you ask within this group that the 2 students take on a controversial issue. You take a controversial issue, I should say that at first. For example, abortion, it's very controversial. Then you have the 2 students try to find arguments for the pro side, 2 students for the against side, and then you have a discussion of these arguments. So really go to what is the argument here, what is behind this. So it's not their own point of view, but they have to take a stand and you assign it to them. Then in the next step, you reverse the roles. So the ones who were pro are now against, and they have to find new arguments. So not the arguments we have heard before, but new arguments. Again, discuss all this, and then at the end, come to a solution. What would be, based on all the arguments that we've heard, a good solution? And what is key here, that it's not a debate. It's not about winning. It's not about convincing other people of your opinion. It's about, in the end, to obtain the best solution with all the arguments that we've heard, because there are a lot of arguments. And the tools that we provide can give students some hints for these arguments. They can also look for other arguments. And this is actually, you could say, how a democracy works. You have to hear all the opinions, all the arguments, and then we come to a good solution. Okay, all these teaching strategies, what we did is we created a curriculum framework which all these teaching materials are based on. And these are 5 E's that are present in all the teaching materials, and actually in the teaching materials you see which of the E's a certain part belongs to. So first, engage, that's mostly the starting point. That is that you create interest for the students in the task that they are doing, get a connection to prior knowledge that they have, connected to everyday knowledge, for example. Then you go to explore, and that is more like looking at differences or similarities between things. Explain, try to apply the social science theories to that. Elaborate is finding patterns and testing these ideas that you have, and then evaluate. Maybe you want to reformulate the expectations that you have and create new things, and think maybe also of solutions, possible solutions or plausible solutions that are out there. So this is the framework that we have, and this is also, we've noticed, very valuable for teachers themselves if they want to create their own materials, because that's also possible with all the tools that we provide. There are ready-made teaching materials there, but teachers can also create, of course, their own materials. And this is a good framework to start with that. Now, what are these interactive tools? You can go on your mobile phone to this website yourself, if you want to browse it now. It's for all devices possible, and we've divided the website into 3 parts. A map tool, a classroom tool. These are the interactive tools that you can use with pupils. And when I talk about pupils and our project, and it's about secondary schools, I must say this can also be used in higher education. It can also be used in primary education. This is myself at some primary schools and at the Kinderuniversiteit. It works actually at all levels. So these are handy tools. And in the materials section, we present the curriculum framework and the teaching materials I will explain in a moment. But let's first take a look at the map section. You can also use this, for example, if you're lecturing and you simply need a map on a certain aspect of an attitude or belief, value. You go to the map section and simply try to find a topic. Here's environment. And this is a map, maybe I should do this, which says the percentage of people who are willing to give part of their income to prevent environmental pollution. And what you see is, well, you can change the colors as well. So I now picked these colors because they're more contrasting, I think. What you can see is the more dark red the country is, the higher the percentage of people is who are willing to do so. And you see that some of the countries stand out. So there are more red, dark red parts, and there are more yellow parts. And they're actually what we provide then in our teaching materials. And this is where social science theory comes in, how to explain these differences. There are actually 2 options here. And this is also something that we want to present in the teaching materials. Not one perspective to explain differences. There are always more perspectives that come here. So if you look at the context, it's not one thing, but there are more things. And for example, if you look at Norway, which stands out here, we could say, why are people there so in favor of this? Well, because they're economically affluent. They can afford it. They have enough money. Their basic needs are satisfied. They can go to some higher needs, if you think about sociological, social science theory, and they can afford to be more involved in environmental issues, and also willing to give some money because they have money enough. You can also see some other countries which are not so economically affluent. They also score quite high on this. And this is, of course, another perspective. It's the perspective of that these countries maybe experience a lot of pollution, environmental degradation. And because people are subjected to that, they feel the need to do something because they have problems with it. So these 2 perspectives, we want to show the students that there's more than one perspective, and you can use them to explain differences. In this case, differences between countries. Of course, you can also go to the individual level within countries. And in this case, we can compare maps. That's also a function that we built in, that you can have 2 different maps. And here I selected 2 groups, lower educated and higher educated people. And we can see that the higher educated people are more willing to do this. And again, we can ask, why is this the case? So we have this value clarification idea there. As you can see on the top, you can do a lot of things. You can also change periods. So if you want to look at trends, you can select different respondent groups. So there are a lot of things to do there. And what you can also do is, now I select a different map. It's learning at home hard work, which means how important do people find it to teach children at home the value of the quality of hard work. On the left, you can see simply the percentage of people who think this is very important. You see some yellow countries, the Netherlands, we don't find this very important. and more on the right, the countries which do find it very important. And you again think, why is this the case? Why is this not so important in the Netherlands? Why is it so more important in the East? Well, maybe this has to do with economic affluence again, with wealth. And you can compare it to a map, for example, with the GDP per capita. Can you see how it matches? So you can use this comparing function to discover these patterns and to compare them with your explanation, one could say. Again, you can do that also within the country, low-income groups and high-income groups. And you can see that, indeed, for the lower-income groups, this is more important. You need hard work to be successful. If you already have a high income, hard work is not so important anymore. So there are a lot of things to do this, and I would say, go to the website, look up maps, and play with the tool yourself. The respondent groups, I talked about education and income, but we also have age, gender, urbanization, religion, church attendance, marital status, and migrant status. So there are a lot of different groups that you can compare. The second tool, an interactive tool, that's also a very nice one to use in a classroom, and it is that students can answer some of the survey questions themselves in order to let them think about their own position. So I selected here the two examples about democracy. So students can answer this question and submit it. And then there is another question, for example, about confidence in parliament, and they submit it. And then they are shown a position on this scatter plot. If you do this yourself, you have the green spot. It's only visible for you. And the teacher can display this on the screen. It's anonymous because everyone is blue, and you have an average. But you see that in the class, maybe everyone thinks the same, or maybe there are very diverse opinions, and you can start a discussion here as well. What you also can do is compare different classes. So maybe this is very nice to use in an exchange, an international exchange. In COVID times, you could not travel with your class to another country, to Greece, or for example, but you can do it digitally then. And then you have two classes, and then you can compare their positions. And what you can, of course, also do is compare the positions of the students in blue with the data that we have from EVS, for example, and see where different countries stand, or where different groups within countries, the young, the old, high income, low income stand. So there are a lot of possibilities here, and it makes it also very interactive and engaging the students in to play with the tool again. Finally, I would like to say a little bit more about the actual teaching materials. There have been developed quite a lot of materials, which I forgot to mention, which is also important, is in this slide. Yeah, you can see on top it's available in different languages. So at the moment we have 8 languages, and we are thinking about increasing that. And the teaching materials, as I said, have been developed in co-creation with schools. So they have been trialed, they work in a certain context. What we also did is that each partner also uses teaching materials from another country, adapts it to their own country, trials it again. So there's a lot of material available. And you can search on a subject, like if you're a geography teacher, you search for geography teaching materials. Economics teachers can search for economics, and so on. You can search on a certain topic, but you can also search on skills and what you want to achieve with your students. So, for example, this is what is behind that. We created a matrix to assign to each teaching material the right subject, but also maps related to it. I think this is one you created, Tilburg, together with Boonka, I think, about democracy. And here you see a lot of skills that in this teaching material, the students learned critical thinking, argumentation, discussion. Well, you can select on that as well. And what we then have is for students a part, and also a part for teachers. And you can see, as I said, the curriculum framework with the E's, you can see that this task is about E2 and E3, so exploring and explaining. Yeah? Other materials there. The curriculum framework is on it. We have, of course, instructional videos and manuals, how to work with the tools, also for the students. And we have the background information. This is, let's say, the social science theory about the themes. So we created reports, which are hopefully easily to read, about all this. And in order to facilitate the teachers, we also provide some visuals, or we will provide some visuals in the future. This is a very short, condensed way of all these social science theories. For example, like we talked about the environmental values, about this degradation and the economic prosperity. Next steps, because we're on the final stage of the project, we want to do now is to finalize the teaching materials, to trial it a bit more in schools, get some more feedback, and improve it, add some other languages. We are now working on Italian, and most of all, disseminate the project so that a lot of teachers will be using it. We opted for the strategy to involve teacher training universities, because this means that the students of these teacher training universities use the materials and bring them to the schools. And this way, we hope that the project is already disseminated, but we are doing our best to spread the news. And I think one of the nice ways to disseminate the project, if we could really cooperate with publishers of school books, and in the Netherlands this is already happening. So there is the Seneca method, that's a method for the social sciences, and together with the Fontys University, they created assignments that go with the teaching materials. So that makes it even easier for teachers to use it in class, because it's related to the textbook that is used in the school. One more thing is that Tim and I were present in Brussels not so long ago to present the project in the meeting of the Committee of the Regions. That was very nice. So I was sitting next to another Vice President of the European Commission, Mrs. Sousa, for democracy. And they were discussing the importance of democracy education, which, of course, the European Union is very much committed to. They are very much eager to promote democratic values. And our project was then, one of the examples on how to do that. So I would say spread the news, use the website also. If you are using the website in your teaching, also in bachelor, master classes, please let me know, because then, I can say to the Erasmus Plus, look at our dissemination, look at how widely it is used, that would be good. But also we would appreciate your feedback. So if you're using it and you see something you want to comment on, or you think this is not correct, please let us know, and then we can improve our materials. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inge. It's always exciting to see that European values data are not just data gathered for academic articles, but it's finding its way into teaching and policy. Time is running, so there is time for some questions or remarks. Only 5 minutes, and then we have to move on to the next session. Any questions? Remarks?
Yes, that's a good question. You know, with the European, well, Ruud is actually the chair of the EVS Executive Committee and also involved in the methodology group. You want to answer this, or?
Well, I almost was going to answer it, right? Sorry about that. It's a question of money, actually, so priorities. In Leuven, it was not only European Value Study, but also European Social Survey, Belgium Election Studies, and there was not enough funds to have also Belgium in the added to the EVS, which is a pity because it was there since 1981.
Yeah, it was there from the beginning, so it's a very pity that we're lacking it. But you can imagine that it's quite expensive to gather data in such a way, especially if you're using interviewers. We're going to the people's houses, and each country has to find its own funding. So we are actually quite lucky that so many countries succeeded, but in some countries, yeah, it was difficult.
Ireland was the other one that we regretted.
Yeah.
Any other?
But we have some other data to complement it.
Any other questions? If not, thank you very much again, also Jantine. And ready for the last 2 sessions.